as we speak, there is a debate going on in the House of Commons on the illegal immigration bill. This is where Rishi Sunak's government, with, of course, a strong Home Secretary in the shape of Suella Braverman, they've talked even tougher than Priti Patel did before. But is it really going to make any difference? The idea that people who come across the Channel are deemed to have come illegally, they're detained and then deported. Is it really going to happen all the while we're under the auspices of the European Court of Human Rights? And I've got to tell you, I have my doubts. I doubt it for that reason. I also doubt it because British judges will seize upon the Human Rights Act signed into law in this country in 1998. So what we heard over the weekend was that up to 60 Conservative members of Parliament were going to lay down some amendments, some really tough amendments that said we would, as a country, ignore the rulings of the ECHR. At least that is my understanding of what this rebellion was going to be about and what the amendments being put down would say. And yet today we learn they've all been withdrawn. Has Rishi Sunak managed to fob off yet another potential division in the Conservative Party? Well, joining me is the Conservative Member of Parliament from Stoke-on-Trent, Jonathan Gullis, who joins us in his office in the House of Commons. Jonathan, welcome to the programme. Now, as I understood it, you were one of the people that wanted to put down some tough amendments, and now you've withdrawn them. What's happening?
So, Nigel, we did lay those amendments. They've been debated. In fact, today, Sir Bill Cash, Danny Kruger, Simon Clarke and now John Hayes are speaking to their amendments, and I was speaking on mine in day 2 of committee tomorrow. What we have agreed, after speaking with the Home Secretary, was not to push to a vote at committee stage. That does not rule out voting at report stage. In the agreement that we will enter meaningful discussions between the Home Secretary, between the Immigration Minister and the Prime Minister to make sure that some of these amendments, or all of them ideally, can be adopted by the government, because I think it's important that we respect that those conversations can happen in private. But as I say, if we're not taken seriously, Nigel, we will not be afraid to call a vote. And it will ultimately mean that the Conservative Party will only win any division via opposition votes, which is the last thing anyone wants to see.
Jonathan, explain to us, these amendments that you want to put down and debate and want the government to incorporate. Explain to us why these amendments will make a difference.
So we've been working closely with Professor Richard Eakins, for example, from Policy Exchange, and obviously speaking with people that you speak to as well, Nigel, about how we can make sure, because as you have long pontificated about, and correctly so, these Rule 39 orders are not something that was ever written into the European Convention of Human Rights. This is something from 2005 that came in later. They're not legally binding, yet too many UK judges take them into account. And it's what stopped that plane going off to Rwanda last year. So we're saying that we should totally ignore these Rule 39 laws, make it very explicitly clear to UK judges they are not to take those into account. Another one is about disapplying sections 4, 6 and 10 of the Human Rights Act. The Prime Minister and the Home Secretary have disapplied section 3, but we think these other 3 sections are still gateways that can be used and abused by lefty lawyers and activist judges in order to prevent people from being removed. And then Sir Bill Cash's amendment, the 3 big ones that we're pushing, is about stopping these injunctions, last-minute injunctions, being put on people from being removed from UK domestic courts, and saying if someone's unfit to fly or if someone's going to be persecuting the country we're taking them to, then we can pause their removal. But under those, everyone else is on the plane, off it goes, to Rwanda, to other safe third countries. Because if we don't deliver on this, Nigel, now with the Reform Party again, I see, you will do the damage that with my seat in Stoke-on-Trent North. It means I will have a Labour MP, sadly, come back and ultimately have someone who's pro-open borders and pro-free movement.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think the Conservative government have been very pro-open borders, haven't they? I mean, even legal net migration last year was 500,000, let alone the 46,000 that crossed the English Channel. A lot of people, Jonathan, will say it doesn't make any difference. And talking tough is one thing, but delivering results is what matters. What if ultimately you get your way and the legislation is worded in the way in which you want, and yet still we get strong judgments coming out of Strasbourg, backed up by large sections of the media, backed up by British judges saying, hang on a second, You know, Parliament can pass laws, of course it can, but we're signed up here by international treaty to the European Convention on Human Rights. I mean, we're almost back, actually, to the Brexit debate. What I'm really getting at is, rather than fiddling around the edges and hoping for a decent outcome, which I'm still very pessimistic about, wouldn't it just be more honest to say that we shouldn't be part of ECHR, that we should genuinely be sovereign when it comes to managing our borders?
So, Nigel, I'll be very clear with you. I've said it before in other interviews. I absolutely do think that the next general election, there is a case, and we should have in the Conservative Party manifesto, that we will withdraw from the ECHR, because, as you say, treaty agreements does not trump sovereignty of lawmaking in our British Parliament. Our borders are also sovereign and under the control of this UK government, and we should not have some foreign judge in Strasbourg woken up.
Well, he seems to have frozen. But look, Jonathan, I think we got the message. But Jonathan.
Oh, sorry, Nigel.
Jonathan, you that's right, you dropped out briefly. Quick question to you. You know, if the Conservatives were to put in their next manifesto that they would have a negotiation and consider leaving the ECHR, why should we believe them?
Well, I think at the end of the day, this government has been delivering on the 2019 manifesto. I've seen the levelling up agenda in my own constituency of Stoke-on-Trent North, Kidsgrove and Talk, from the 56 million levelling up fund to the 17.6 million Kidsgrove Town deal. I've seen us bring forward legislation, as we said we would, to obviously get Brexit done, to obviously make sure that we get that deal to end the frustration that was going on in Parliament, as well as other important pieces of legislation like online harms bill, which has been important to protect people. I've got constituents who have sadly lost loved ones from taking their own life due to the fact that there's these vile websites advising people on how to do it. So I do think the government is acting. I do respect the Prime Minister, but he's trying to deliver.
But we have not taken back control of our borders, which was the key issue that got Brexit over the line and helped get people like you elected in Stoke-on-Trent. So far, you've got to be honest with me, that's been a failure.
Oh, look, I understand totally people are livid. I'm not happy about the fact that I was kicking off about this issue, and I think it was 2,000 to 4,000 originally, and I'm gobsmacked that it's taken, sadly, some colleagues from across the House a little while longer to jump on board this issue and understand the seriousness of it. And I totally get why the British public are fed up of seeing what was now 45,000, could be up to 70, 80,000 by the end of 2023 if we don't get this policy right and implemented. I know it is what will determine whether or not I am remaining as the Member of Parliament for Stoke-on-Trent North, Kidsgrove and Talk. And I think, Nigel, you and I both know I'm pretty vocal on this issue. I'm not being a damp rag on it. I've been pretty loud and proud, and I like to think pretty sound on the issue as well. So I'll be fighting tooth and nail to make sure we deliver, because as you say, if we don't, if this legislation ends up being another march up the hill and march back down again, that's it for the Conservative Party.
I agree with you, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us tonight here again on GB News.